Hello! In this video, I would like to show you how to rotate a pie chart to emphasize your message to the audience. The first option will be to rotate the first slice using the scroll bar to position the chart as the user needs. So as I'm scrolling, the pie chart rotates. The second option will be to rotate the data point that the user wants to emphasize into the position of the first slice after a cell is selected in a table. As I'm going through the brands, in the table, the data points get rotated into the position of the first slice. The table will also have a filter. For example, I will select brand C. Let's see how this is done. As preparation work, I changed the data range to a table by clicking in it and then pressing Ctrl and T together. And I also added a pie chart which shows the sales %. In order to rotate the pie chart without using Visual Basic, I'm going to double-click on the data series, and under Format Data Series, increase the angle of first slice. So with the changing angle of first slice, the pie chart begins to rotate. I'm going to use this information in the macros. The first option will be to rotate the pie chart using a scroll bar. I will add a scroll bar to the sheet by going to the Developer tab and under Insert, going to Active X Controls and choosing the scroll bar. I have to be in design mode to modify its properties, and under Properties I can set the minimum and maximum values of the scroll bar. The minimum will be at 0 and the maximum at 360, because the rotation will be from 0 to 360 degrees. Let's exit design mode and open the Visual Basic Editor. The Visual Basic Editor can be opened with the key combination Alt and F11 or under Developer tab by clicking Visual Basic. Under Sheet 1, I get an additional option in the first drop-down, Scrollbar 1. And in the other drop-down, I get the events. If you can't see the Developer tab, then you have to go back to the sheet, go to File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and under Customize Ribbon, under the main tabs, check the Developer tab. Now let's write the macros. I will put several macros on Sheet 1, and because of this, I will declare 3 variables at the top which are common for all of them. This will spare me the extra typing. Pie chart is going to be the chart that I'm working on. Pie group is going to be its chart group. A chart group is a group of similar series. And pie series is going to be its series. Because I have just one series, I also have one chart group. The first macro will rotate the pie chart when the scroll bar changes. Now let's define the variables. So pie chart is chart 1 on the active sheet. If you don't remember how to find the chart number, we have to go back to the sheet, select the chart, and in the far left corner we can see that it's called chart 1. And it has one series and one chart group. When the scroll bar changes, I would like pie series to get data labels and the angle of first slice to be equal to the value of the scroll bar. Please note that first slice angle is used with pie group, not pie series. And now let's test. Let's go back to the sheet and change the scroll bar. The series gets data labels and the chart starts rotating. But the rotation is not very smooth. In order to achieve a smooth rotation, I need a second macro. I'm going to choose another event. Scroll. And copy the code. Now let's test. So now if I'm scrolling, the rotation is much smoother than before. Another option can be to rotate a pie chart if a user wants to emphasize a certain slice. In my last video, I showed you how to explode a slice and give it a data label if a user clicks a certain cell in a table. In addition to explosion and data label, this slice can also be rotated into the position of the first one. Let's see how this is done. The chart has to rotate when the user selects a different cell in a table. That's why I need a selection change event. So in the first drop down, I will choose Worksheet and get the selection change. Let's declare the remaining variables because 3 are already at the top. F is the first cell of the clickable range. R is going to be the clickable range, so by clicking in a cell in this range, the user can make the chart rotate. Cell is going to be necessary to loop through range R. K is an integer as it's going to be the point number. I is also an integer and it will be necessary in the loop for calculating the sum of the values of data points. Some values will be the sum of the values of the data points. It will be necessary for calculating the angle of the rotation. Let's define the variables, and I'm going to copy the definition of pie chart, pie group, and pie series. I'm going to set F to equal active sheet range A15. And I will set R to be the range from F to the cell whose row and column are the row and column of cells which are last non-blank cells when going down and to the right of F. At the initial stage, the Pi series has no data labels. No explosion. And the angle of first slice is equal to 0. If the user selects only one cell, and this cell is from range R, then the loop will start. For each cell in R, some values has to equal 0. So some values is the sum of the values of the data points from the first one to the one that we need. And it has to equal 0 at the beginning of the loop in order to avoid repeated summing, for example, for milk chocolate and white chocolate, because white and milk appear in several cells. If cell value is equal to the value of the selected cell, and the entire row of the cell is visible, then the point number k will be calculated with the following function. Worksheet function aggregate, number 3, which is count A, which counts all non-empty cells, meaning also text, 5 to ignore hidden rows, and the range from F to the cell whose row corresponds to row of cell that we're looking at, and the column belongs to cell F. So I'm using function aggregate because the table may have a filter. And aggregate ignores hidden rows. So point number k is the number of visible cells from F to the row of the cell that we're looking at in the column of F. The data point k will have an explosion of 20%. And we'll get a data label. And now I have to determine the angle of the rotation. So to do this, first, I'm going to sum up the values of the data points from the first one to the one that we're looking at. I'm looping through the data points from 1 to k and adding the value of the data point to the previous calculation. The rotation of the pie chart will be calculated using the following formula. I subtract the value of point k from some values because if the user selects the first slice of the pie chart, then this slice has to remain in its own position. And I divide this number by the sum of the values of all visible data points. So I'm looking for the fraction of the full circle. I multiply this by 360 because there are 360 degrees in a circle. And I subtract this number from 360 because a counterclockwise movement of a certain angle is the same as a clockwise movement of 360 degrees minus the same angle. And if, next cell, again and if, and that's it. Let me indent for better visibility. And now let's test. Let's go back to the sheet and select brand B. The equivalent data point gets a data label, is exploded, and rotates into the position of the first slice. And the same happens to the other brands. If I select white chocolate, then the fourth brand, the last one of white chocolate, rotates into the position of the first slice. And for milk chocolate, also the second brand, brand G, rotates into the position of the first slice. I would also like to add a slicer. Brands. Enable multi-select. And now I'm going to deselect brand C. And brand D. And even with hidden rows, the rotation is correct. If I deselect brand A, the Microsoft Excel will transfer the explosion to the next slice. This could be confusing for the user. Also, the change in the filter selection will not trigger the selection change event. So in order to wipe the slate clean every time that the filter selection changes and take back the formatting changes I made earlier, I need an additional macro. I will use the calculate event for this macro, and I'm not going to put a dummy this time on the sheet because I have a calculation, which will get recalculated every time that the filter selection changes. So let's go into the Visual Basic Editor. Choose Calculate. Copy and paste the definition of the variables pie chart, pie group, and pie series. And take back the formatting. Now let's test. So if I select certain brands on the sheet, the formatting gets applied and the chart rotates. If I deselect brand B, the formatting is taken back. If you would like to use this code in your own sheet, then please adapt the name of the sheet on which the chart is, the chart number, the chart group number, and the series number to your own file for all the macros shown here. For the macros with scroll bar, please also adapt the name of the sheet on which the scroll bar is to your own file, and please also adapt the name of the scroll bar. For the macro with selection change, please also adapt the first cell of the clickable range to your own file. This macro with selection change has to be embedded into the sheet on which the cells which have to be selected are. And this macro with calculate has to be embedded into the sheet on which the calculation is. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more practical spreadsheet solutions.